Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are jumping straight into an analysis of key spy stories and security intelligence updates from the week. And honestly, it's pretty wild out there right now.
It really is. I
Yeah.
mean, looking at the landscape for February 2026, the whole idea of a quiet shadow war is, well, it's completely dead.
Yeah, completely gone. We have three main theaters we are covering for you today. First, we've got Russia's homeland absolutely under siege by drones, along with their increasingly draconian internal crackdowns.
Right. And then you have this staggering volume of cyber attacks hitting Taiwan, plus some really dramatic spy arrests happening right here in Europe involving NATO officers.
Exactly. And the mission for this deep dive is to connect all these dots for you, to show how hybrid warfare isn't just a buzzword anymore, it is our daily reality. We're talking kinetic strikes, cyber hacks, and information ops all happening at once.
And we are seeing adversaries like Russia and China really ramping up their aggression. They're getting loud and, frankly, quite reckless.
So let's start with the loudest part of this equation, Russia. Because the numbers coming out of that February 15th to 19th timeframe, they're just staggering.
They are. We are looking at over 170 Ukrainian drones absorbed by Russia in a single day.
A single day.
Yeah, it is a massive escalation. And to understand why this matters, you have to look beyond just the raw number. This is what military strategists call a saturation event.
Saturation meaning they're just flooding the zone, right?
Exactly. When you launch 170 drones, you aren't expecting all of them to hit a target. You are launching a mix of distinct high-impact munitions alongside cheaper decoys.
So the goal is to just light up the Russian air defense radar like a Christmas tree.
Precisely. You force them to make split-second decisions. Do I fire a $2 million interceptor missile at a $500 plastic drone?
It's an economic equation as much as a military one. You just deplete their magazines.
You exhaust their defenses so that the few drones that do matter, the ones carrying the heavy payloads, can actually slip through the gaps. And 15 of those drones were on a direct vector for Moscow.
Which is a huge psychological blow in itself. But they weren't just aiming for the Kremlin. The target list this week was very strategic.
Very strategic. They are hammering energy infrastructure. We saw a massive fire at the Ilsky oil refinery, another blaze at the oil depot in Velike Luki.
And the one that really stood out to me, just in terms of the impact on everyday people, was Belgorod.
Yes, the centralized hot water system.
I saw they suspended it, and not just for a day.
No, local authorities suspended it for the remainder of the heating season.
Wow. It is February in Russia. That is not a minor inconvenience. That is freezing.
It's freezing, and it brings the cost of the war straight into Russian civilians' homes. It really proves Ukraine is probing those saturation thresholds and breaking the social contract Putin relies on.
Right. That whole deal of, I handle the politics, you just live your life, that is literally freezing over.
It is. And the Kremlin's reaction hasn't exactly been to reassure people. They're turning the laws completely inward.
This is the authoritarian reflex we always see. You're failing to protect the borders, so you clamp down harder on your own people. What did the State Duma just pass?
A terrifying set of amendments, honestly. They have empowered the FSB, the Federal Security Service, to demand the suspension of any communication service without even needing to specify a security threat.
Wait, hold on. So they don't even need to manufacture a reason. They don't have to say, like, there's a bomb threat.
No. The legislation removes that requirement entirely. Moscow is formalizing a nationwide digital blackout authority.
It sounds like they're preparing a kill switch for the internet.
That is exactly what it is. It's a structural escalation.
Yeah.
And we know exactly who the immediate target is. It's Telegram.
Right, because everyone in that region uses it for news.
It's the primary source of unfiltered information.
Yeah.
FSB Chief Alexander Bortnikov has been publicly accusing Pavel Durov of facilitating terrorism. And the intel suggests a nationwide block is coming around April 1st.
That is coming up so fast. It feels like they are just desperately trying to seal the information bubble.
They are. And to justify all this control, they are fueling a narrative of pervasive sabotage. The FSB is publicizing near-daily counterterrorism detentions in regions like Chelyabinsk and Krasnodar.
I've seen those headlines. It's relentless. Saboteur caught here, plot foiled there.
It's paranoia as policy.
Naughty.
They want the population to think there are spies behind every bush, so that shutting down the internet looks like security instead of just blatant censorship. It paints a really unflattering, desperate picture of the regime.
It really does. They're cornered and lashing out at their own citizens. But if we shift our gaze westward, the paranoia might be manufactured inside Russia, but the threat they pose is very real in Europe.
Absolutely. The European theater is heating up, but where Russia is using brute force at home, they're using classic cloak and dagger tactics against NATO.
Yeah, we had some spy arrests this week that feel ripped straight out of a Cold War novel. Greece arrested a wing commander.
Yes, a senior Air Force officer. The allegation is that he was passing NATO aircraft movement data to a foreign power.
A wing commander has access to serious strategic data. That could compromise the entire southern flank's situational awareness.
It's a massive breach. And it wasn't just Greece. Belgium detained a procurement facilitator linked to the GRU, Russian military intelligence.
So he was likely trying to bypass sanctions to get high-tech gear back to Moscow?
Exactly. But there is a really chilling nuance here that the Dutch intelligence service, the AIVD, highlighted this week. They warned that Russia is now willing to accept material damage to inflict chaos.
Material damage, so they are willing to actually break things.
That is the shift. Traditionally, espionage is quiet. You steal the secret and leave no trace. Now, they are getting reckless. They don't care if they cause physical destruction or get caught, as long as it causes disruption.
Which feeds perfectly into their information war. If you can make people feel unsafe, the disinformation just lands better. Let's talk about the Matryoshka bot network.
It's a highly adaptive, fluid network designed to confuse and divide. This week, they latched onto the Olympic disqualification of a Ukrainian athlete.
Right, I remember that headline. But what did the bots do with it?
They didn't just amplify the real news. They exploited it to spread fake Western media narratives.
Right.
They created completely fabricated reports that looked like reputable European news outlets, claiming the West was turning its back on Ukraine because of this athlete.
So they are taking a tiny kernel of truth and wrapping it in a massive lie to drive a wedge between allies.
Exactly. It shows how opportunistic they are in this information war.
Okay, so we have Russia lashing out, sowing chaos. But we need to pivot to the Indo-Pacific, the dragon's pressure cooker, because the strategy with China feels very different. Let's talk about Taiwan.
The scale of what is happening around Taiwan is hard to overstate.
I have to bring up this statistic because it is jaw-dropping. Taiwan reported 2.63 million cyber intrusion attempts per day in 2025.
Oh, day, yes.
That is a 112% increase. But is that all actual hackers, or is it automated noise?
A lot of it is automated scanning, scripts looking for unlocked doors. But the volume itself is a weapon. It creates a deafening amount of digital noise for the defenders in Taipei.
So they overwhelm the system so the real professionals can slip in unnoticed.
Exactly. And the goal for those professionals isn't just harassment. It is prepositioning.
Prepositioning, meaning they are targeting critical infrastructure and telecoms, right?
Yes. They are using man-in-the-middle tactics to establish persistence. They hide in the system. The goal is to be fully entrenched, so that if a future invasion happens, they can just flip a switch and turn off the grid.
It's like finding out someone has been living in your attic for a year, just waiting for a signal.
That is the reality. And while they're digging in digitally, they're aggressively posturing physically.
Yeah, the physical provocations between February 19th and 20th, 14 PLA aircraft and 6 ships detected around Taiwan.
And 10 of those aircraft crossed the median line.
Which used to be an unofficial boundary that everyone respected to avoid accidental war. Now it's just a routine crossing.
But these aren't random probes. The flight paths north, center, southwest are very specific. This is rehearsed envelope testing. They are measuring response times, radar locks, gathering data for invasion plans.
It's a full-on rehearsal. And they are doing similar things in the South China Sea.
Right. The PLA Southern Theater Command has been shadowing allied drills between the U.S., the Philippines, and Australia.
And then Beijing turns around and criticizes those allied drills as destabilizing. The irony is just rich.
It's classic gaslighting. They fly bombers across the median line, but call your defensive practice destabilizing, and simultaneously they are weaponizing trade against their neighbors.
Which brings us to the tech vulnerabilities and economic bullying. Let's make this real for you, the listener, because this high-level spy stuff can feel abstract until it hits your own devices. There was a terrifying tech story this week regarding Dell.
The Dell zero-day vulnerability.
Right. Google and Mandiant found PRC-linked actors, a group called UNC5221, exploiting a zero-day in Dell recover point.
Yes, CVE 2026-22769. The technical jargon aside, the really scary part is where they are hiding and how long they've been there.
They are hiding in edge appliances. Walk us through what that actually means.
An edge appliance sits at the boundary between your secure internal network and the open internet. It handles things like data backups. Because these are specialized hardware boxes, companies often just set them up and forget about them.
They are outside the traditional visibility of standard antivirus software.
Exactly. They're a blind spot. And these PRC hackers found a vulnerability that Dell didn't even know existed. But the kicker is, they have been exploiting this since mid-2024.
Since mid-2024, they have been sitting in these backup systems for almost 2 years, undetected.
And think about what Recover Point does. If you get hit by a cyber attack, your first move is to restore from backups.
But if the hackers already control the backups,
You are checkmated before you even realize you're playing the game. It is the ultimate prepositioning.
that is just terrifying. It really exposes how fragile these systems are. And China isn't just weaponizing code. They are weaponizing their economy. Let's look at Japan.
The economic coercion against Japan is a stark example of how Beijing operates. Inbound Chinese tourism to Japan dropped 45% year-on-year in December.
45%. That is a massive hit to the tourism industry, and it's pure political punishment.
Completely. Beijing is punishing Tokyo for its political stance, and the rhetoric is escalating. Foreign Minister Wang Yi was out there warning about Japanese militarism.
But the real threat isn't just tourists staying home. He brought up rare earth exports.
Right. China dominates the processing of rare earth metals, which are essential for high-tech manufacturing globally. They are heavily implying that if Japan doesn't toe the line, those export restrictions could be next.
It just proves that China uses tourism and trade as weapons just as much as missiles or botnets. It's all economic bullying.
It's a comprehensive strategy.
So let's pull all of this together for you. We've covered a massive amount of ground today. From drones in Russia to spy networks in Europe to cyber sieges in Taiwan. What is the grand synthesis here?
I think we are seeing two distinct adversaries operating with the same goal of hybrid escalation, but with very different styles.
Russia is locking down its own population to hide its war failures. They are loud, messy, turning off the heat for their own people, and accepting material damage in Europe just to cause chaos.
Yes, it's brute force and desperation. But China is playing a much colder, longer game. They are ramping up cyber attacks to unprecedented levels, prepositioning inside edge appliances for years, and quietly bullying their neighbors economically.
It really redefines where the actual combat zone is. The front line isn't just in a trench in Donetsk or the Taiwan Strait anymore.
No, as the front line is in the server rooms. It's in the communication apps like Telegram. It's in the energy grids that heat your home.
It leaves you with a really provocative and honestly uncomfortable thought. If the FSB can just formalize the authority to shut down the internet on a whim,
And if PRC hackers are sitting quietly in our backup servers undetected for years,
then how much of our supposed security is just a complete illusion?
it's a question we all need to be asking. Are we secure, or have they just not flipped the switch yet?
That is exactly what you need to be mulling over this week. But that is why we do these deep dives, to bring you the reality of the intel. Stay curious, stay safe, and maybe take a very close look at your network backups today. We'll see you in the next deep dive.